Hey guys, I am here today to talk to you about creating some drawings of landscape using foreground, middle ground, and background in your sketchbooks. So again, foreground is going to be what is very near to us, middle ground is going to be middle distance, and then background is going to be the furthest thing right away from us. One of the easiest ways to start to establish landscape is to think about where you want your horizon line to be. The horizon line, in this case, I'm going to kind of go about here. You can make a flat line or you can make it a little jagged. This is going to be sort of the distant horizon in my image. I'm going to try to use overlapping to create some space here. Maybe I'm going to put some things even further away. I'm trying to make some mountain-like forms in the distance. Maybe even I'm looking at a sunset going down over here. So I've got my little sun lowering behind the mountains. As things move upward from the vanishing point, so as they move from like here at the horizon line up, they're going to become larger as they're getting closer to your eye. So if I have a little cloud in the distance, I could have a little cloud back here. But if I go further up, away from the horizon line, I don't want to make my clouds feel larger because they're going to be closer to my eye. Again, if they're lower, maybe I'll have a smaller cloud in the distance, larger clouds in the foreground to make them feel closer to my eye. All right. So the opposite is true of the lower part of the horizon line. So this is my horizon line. As I move down this way, things are going to get larger as they move away from the horizon line in this direction, below the horizon line. So for instance, if I had a tree and I wanted to make it feel really close in the foreground, I might make it very, very large. And overlap is a huge part of creating space in landscape as well. So I might overlap some of the background elements. And give it another little branch here. Branch up that way. Okay. So I can just come back and erase anything that I've overlapped in the background to create my foreground tree. So if this is really far away from the vanishing point or the horizon line, excuse me, in terms of perspective, the closer, if I wanted to make another tree, but I wanted to make it appear closer to, if I wanted to make it appear further away from me, I would go closer to the horizon line with it. So the base wouldn't start at the very bottom like this. And I would diminish it in scale. So I'd make it smaller in scale to help it to appear like it's further back in space. Again, I'm going to erase through the things that I overlap. Trees are all different sorts of shapes. You can experiment with like putting different style branches on them. You might have some that have foliage or not. Mine are kind of winter trees, I guess. So I've got one now that is maybe in my middle ground. Maybe I want to put one way, way, way far away. One tree that's further away. So I'm going to go even closer to the horizon line. In this case, maybe this one's going to have some foliage at the top of it. Try to make some foliage up here. So maybe this is an evergreen where the other ones are in winter and have lost their leaves. So you're going to notice, here's my horizon line. Totally a good thing to kind of break and push up over that horizon line. Take all the opportunities, that you can to overlap. That's going to create depth in your piece when you start overlapping. It's going to help you to create distance. So that helps a lot. I feel like my landscape is still sort of plain. I might add, some details and textures around the base of these trees to kind of give them a sense that they're growing out of something. I might also, break up some of this landscape. Maybe I want to create a path that I could follow in this space. There's like a winding path that comes through this space. It comes this way and then comes over, winds back around this way. Again, if I'm dealing with something like a pathway or whatever I'm dealing with, if I can try to make it look smaller in the distance and larger as it moves away from that horizon line, that's going to help create the impression of depth and space in my composition. And again, if I can use overlap, like I've overlapped the tree over top of this roadway, that's going to create that impression of space and distance. Some other things I could do, maybe I could add some smaller details, especially in the foreground. In the foreground, that's where I'm going to see, much of my detailed items. So maybe I've got like, stones or, small clumps of vegetation here. Usually trees have little shrubby kind of deals that grow up and around them. The sunlight often keeps other big trees away, but you do get some small undergrowth and vegetation. Maybe I want to have a slightly larger bit of vegetation over here. This is all very, right now this is all very spontaneous. I don't really like the way that I've made this. I'm going to erase this out. The top part of this tree, it doesn't feel very natural to me the way it's branching, so I'm going to redraw it, create some different branches. The top branches felt too similar, so maybe I want to give them a little more character, make them a little bit more different from one another. That's okay. Lots of times you don't know what you want until you start getting something on the page, and you can say, oh, maybe I want something that's a little different from that. Okay. It's a kind of funky, more twisted tree. Looks a little more natural to me. Not so symmetrical. Okay. So I'm starting to get a little bit of a sense of landscape. I've got this tree pushed up into the foreground. Maybe I want to give it some feeling like there's some things growing around it too, like my other one I've got back here. But the base of the tree is way down, off of out of our field of vision. This is a photograph. It's beyond the edge of the photograph. So I'm going to make it large and sort of touch the edge here, give the impression maybe that this goes off of the photograph as well. Just some kind of scrubby little shapes and textures to maybe make it look like we're looking through a bit of foliage here. Might even give myself a little texture in the background to create the impression that there's some trees in the distance, or maybe some things that I can't really make out in the distance. Give a little bit of shape to that background. Okay, so here's my quick little invented landscape. You guys are going to be doing some of these on your own. Again, just some quick tips to remember as you work, consider, putting things in the foreground. So things that are very, very close to you. You'll want some middle ground, so things that are a medium distance away from you. You'll want background. Definitely establish your horizon line early on in the drawing. And remember, as you move up and away from your horizon line, objects are going to get bigger, like my clouds get bigger the further I go away from my horizon line up here, and they get smaller, as I move back down to my horizon line, a little lower. That's going to help create space because it's going to make these feel closer to me. Also, as you move down and away from your horizon line, remember the things that are furthest away from that horizon line are going to be the largest in scale. So make, like for instance, this tree starts way, way, way down here at the edge of the composition. So it's as far as you can get from the horizon line. So it's very, very large. I'm trying to create the impression that it's very, very far away from the horizon line. And the closer you get, to the horizon line, the smaller you need to make things. Like here's another tree. I've created this sense of scale and space by making this tree much smaller and giving you something to compare it to. Think, also about the level of detail that you might see when something is close up versus far away. You're going to see a lot more detail the closer things are. As they get further away, things are going to become more blurry to your eye. So that can be another way to show depth. Overlap is very, very important. So as you draw, like really just draw through things, draw over them, and erase what's underneath if you cross over something to create that feeling of space. So you guys are going to try to experiment with at least 5 different landscapes. You can see for scale, mine right now is about the size of an index card. If you've got actual index cards, you can draw yours on index cards, or you can just do what I've done and make a sort of rectangle shape in your sketchbook. I'll show you a couple more that I did on the other side in pen, just so you can get an idea. I do want you guys to create at least 5 of these, okay? So let's take a look at some of the other ones. So here's a quick one, again, showing a pathway, moving back, a couple of trees. I tried a really different format here, so more like a landscape sort of format. You can see my rectangle is very, very long and narrow. I wanted something more panoramic here. So I went with a longer and narrower format. Also here, notice I went from that like horizontal format to a vertical one, just to try out something different. If you change up your format, it's going to make you think of the composition very differently. So the panorama was kind of cool. I like this way to set up sort of a deep space. It gave me a lot of opportunity to put things, close that were way over on this side, and have a lot of expanded space to play around with on the other side as well. This is my little barnyard here. So I've got my horizon line really low here, and I went down below the horizon line because, rarely ever are you going to want to draw something directly onto the horizon line. A lot of little kids, when they're drawing something, for instance, say that you were drawing a house. So they'd draw their horizon line, and then they would have their house sitting right on the horizon line, and then there'd be grass coming up from it, and there'd be, maybe a tree over here, a broccoli-shaped tree or something, and a sun. Like, that does not show us any depth at all. So you don't want to draw things directly on the horizon line. You're going to show, even in this simple little, drawing, you're going to show a lot more depth if you drop something down below the horizon line in this house, because you're starting to then overlap and create the sense of visual space through overlapping. I would say, don't put anything directly on the horizon line. So even here, you're going to see I dropped below the horizon line to put my little barn and silo. And I tried to add some little cows here to create space. Got a little far away cow, then one that's closer, and then I tried to create the impression that this cow was like right up, like almost photobombing this scene. You can see again, I used my clouds, the scale of my clouds here, small, middle, large, to create some depth and distance. I tried an even taller, skinnier format here. You can see this is almost like something, I was trying to think of something like almost a desert landscape with big, sort of mountains that you were seeing through that kind of framed a sunset in the distance. Tried to create like a kind of pathway that led back to that sunset. And then last I've got something that's maybe like a little town with some little buildings and pathways. Again, I didn't have a flat horizon in this one. I started with a curved horizon and built some hills into it. Again, I used small clouds at the closer to that horizon line, larger further away. I used trees again here. The scale of the trees close and then far away. The scale of the buildings close to further away to create depth in this piece. So you can see these are very quick and sketchy and loose. I wouldn't recommend doing what I did here and starting right away in pen. I thought maybe this would show up a little better on the screen, so I tried this. But honestly, it's a lot easier to edit and make, changes if you go with pencil first. All right. Well, give it a try. I want to see at least 5 pieces, and I want you to use foreground, middle ground, background in each. If you have no idea of where to begin, I am fine with you using a camera to take some pictures outside. That would be a fine place to begin to see maybe how to break down a space, a landscape. I do not, however, want you to look at other people's landscape drawings and copy those. I want you to, if you need a resource, the best case scenario is to take your own photo. Second best would be to find a photo that you can look at and use for a reference. I really don't want you to take someone else's drawing, though, because that will already have done a lot of the work for you in terms of breaking those shapes down and placing them. So try not to do that. Okay, I'll look forward to seeing what you come up with. Bye.